Fashion News opens its fashion vaults to the most important, influential, and trend-setting designers of the last 30 years. Designer Marathon brings you a unique chronicle of the milestone moments, the landmark collections, the exhibitions, the favorite models, and the creative process behind every designer's career. From the first to the last, from the shocking to the classic, follow the evolution of the world's top designers from rising star to fashion icon. It's all here in the vault, a retro-spectacular timeline, a designer marathon.
Her legacy goes back 35 years. I mean, right to the very roots of the punk movement, deconstruction, anarchy, everything that tears fashion apart and remakes it. Vivienne's been at the forefront. She's a complete and utter maverick, a revolutionary, a radical, and fashion needs people like that.
No designer is considered more countercultural and revolutionary than Vivienne Westwood. Born Vivienne Isabel Swire in 1941, she was exposed to the clothing industry at an early age. Her mother was a weaver at the local cotton mill, and her father a cobbler. But it was her awakening to the world of ideas as a young art student that started her on the path to becoming the grande dame of British fashion.
When I came to London when I was 17, that was the first time that I ever went to an art gallery. Until I was about 16, I didn't even know that such things even existed, public art galleries. I never looked at paintings, never listened to music. It's quite incredible, really. So living in London was very important for me.
In London, she became a school teacher, marrying Gareth Westwood in 1962. The marriage only lasted 3 years, and in 1965 she met Malcolm McLaren, who would turn Westwood's hand to the world of fashion.
I decided to help my boyfriend, who was mad about clothes, and I just began to sew for him, and eventually got him a small shop.
The shop, first called Let It Rock, and later known as Sex, then Seditionaries, and finally World's End, with its now iconic backward-ticking clock, became a hub for the nascent punk scene that Westwood and McLaren would help define. They sold clothing designed to shock traditional sensibilities. Fetish and bondage gear, and slash and deconstructed clothing all became signifiers of a countercultural revolution captured in the angry energy of punk music. In 1975, McLaren began managing the band with Sex Pistols, and Westwood began dressing them.
See this jacket here? This is part of a suit that I designed with Vivienne Westwood Ford, and she made it for me a long time ago. I wore this on the very first Sex Pistols tour of America.
When fashion and music come together, then a scene happens, a look happens, and something more important happens in the culture, and that's usually from a very young perspective.
The punks are kind of good because they were trying to attack the establishment. And you can't really attack the establishment. You have to have ideas. You can't just say, I don't know. It was a very, very heroic attempt, but in the end it just became a marketing possibility. They can sell you safety pins, more safety pins, or whatever it is, and token rebellion, but it looks great, and I believed in it in those days. And it's terribly, I don't know, up yours, it's quite good.
We're not particularly European in Britain, we're British. We're a pirate culture, we're a bit daft and mad, I suppose, but we are utterly fearless in how we dress and what we say and what we do.
In spite of Westwood's subversive ideas, her body of work is defined by a deep reverence for tradition, mining history to create her distinct vision of fashion.
I think that you can't separate a truly creative person from one who has a respect for the past, because as soon as you start to appreciate beauty and design and form from the past, then you realise how great people were.
I'm not an iconoclast. I don't believe in breaking everything just because it's old. In fact, I think you really need to hang on to superior things.
She almost invented modern English fashion, if you really want to know what I think. Well, I'll tell you, Vivienne Westwood isn't just the Earth Mother of all fashion, but she has a very special role here. Because really all of London started with her. She reinvented fashion completely.
As a matter of fact, I have been an innovator with regard to cut, and my cutting ideas have become part of the body of fashion technique.
It's true, I know that. I know I've had a very big influence on the way people look.
And now for the lady who started it all. Vivienne Westwood's name is synonymous with the beginning of London's street styles. This spring, Vivienne redefines exaggerated body-conscious dressing to her own fashion standards. Wood print overcoats cover a mini dress with a hoop skirt and block stripes and checks for a new and unusual silhouette. Baby doll ruffles fused with antebellum mini hoops in polka dot and star prints for a little girl look. Ornaments bring added humor to a beanie. Vibrant reds appear in a smartly tailored pantsuit and belted shirt. Baby doll ruffled bloomers are in sweetheart pink. A child's sailor suit is reworked for women in cotton knit and eyelet fabrications. Another eyelet skirt has a puckered hem. Vivienne's denims have an overscaled star motif for this season's patriotic theme. Her national theme continues in dresses that spoof the flags of all nations. Vivienne Westwood, First Lady of eccentric London style. For fall 1987, Vivienne Westwood was inspired by traditional British heritage, building her collection around cheeky fabric crowns and refined Harris tweeds, but with a saucy edge.
I've always preferred to work with traditional fabrics anyway, because I could tell you, but I always do. And when I realised that half my collection was Harris tweed, I approached them. I thought, this is a waste. I should have this Harris tweed on the posters in the underground, so I should contact Harris Tweed about this. And I'd like to say that I'm really proud to work with Harris Tweed, because it's a great privilege to play with all the surprises of tradition. It was a theme. The whole sort of feeling of this collection was debutantes, as they used to be called, I don't know what they're called now, arriving at the Hunt Ball in their ball gown and crown, and their big Barber anorak in their Land Rover. I mean, that was the feeling of it. Because I've just really started to work from England again. I had tried to produce in Italy, and so I did want to clock in the fact that I'm English. And I wanted to talk about that traditional English look.
Traditional English wardrobe staples were given a youthful twist. Westwood brought back last season's influential mini crinny, this time in coquettish sheer lace. The flirty crinnies offer a feminine new proportion, emphasizing hourglass curves instead of power shoulders.
When I did the crinoline, I did realise that to do this lightly boned garment, I did realise that it would become this fashion motif, but I also realised that it would kill this dreadful great big shoulder, which I've never liked. I've always found it terribly ugly, and I find women pathetic looking like that, actually. I much prefer the strength of women when one emphasises their womanly, feminine form. And so the crinoline was a dynamic to stop people looking at that other old dynamic of the big shoulder, the oversize and asymmetry. And you work with an idea until you realise that you've not exactly grown tired of it, but you've exhausted it somewhat. So then you look at something else.
England's Vivienne Westwood is well known for her fun and untraditional approach to fashion. This season's 1960s-inspired collection was no exception. Her Savile Row suit unexpectedly tops skin-tight bicycle shorts. Vivienne reworks classic separates with vanguard style. She takes fashion to the extreme with micro shorts. And suit dressing will never be the same again, as Westwood plays with new proportions and witty details. And in England, rugby is the name of the game and inspires oversized jersey dresses. Colorful sportswear is taken to new heights with strategically placed padding. The 60s make a comeback with shapely style. And Vivienne gives the Midas touch to pajama pants. Westwood's ethnic look goes primitive this season in giant leopard spots. And traditional suits are draped in Indian sari style. But for one of London's most inventive outfits, Westwood cuts it above the belly button and below the belt. Outrageous, innovative style from Vivienne Westwood. One of London's most influential designers, Vivienne Westwood, continues her dramatic and witty twists on traditional English looks. The oh-so-proper argyle is knitted extra close to the body. Classic houndstooth checks are rescaled. Fake fur collars trim it. Mustard yellow adds spice to winter suits. And Westwood sculpts a shapely royal red dress with collar accent. Fake fur is real fun in Westwood's Take on the Gown vest. dazzle them in the boardroom with Dress for Success gold lame. Yet feminine dresses are draped for softness. When it's time for a little attention, Westwood steals the show with body-clinging crushed velvets. And chase the blues with Westwood's knits and twin sets. Tiny jackets balance Vivien's new proportions. Naughty nude leggings add a humorous twist. Witty English expressions from Vivienne Westwood.
Vivienne Westwood has been acknowledged by Women's Wear Daily as one of the 5 most important designers in the world. And this season, she's painting a fashion portrait.
The collection was called Portrait because what I wanted to do was to just get such a richness of fabrics. And if you look at an oil painting, the background is always so important. It ennobles the poser. And I wanted to get some of the qualities that you find in backgrounds, castles, oil paintings, tapestry, this kind of thing, onto the clothes themselves so that the poser can step out of her frame.
Pinstripes and jodhpurs step out of their portrait frame into a very trendy modern framework. And only Vivienne could make a staid old pinstripe into something shockingly new. Classic Old English style is catapulted into the fashion future. And traditional fabrics are mixed and patched into wild new looks. Vivienne updates the 18th century shoulder line with a superb modern cut. But she isn't locked in the past. Here's her newest version of street gear. An English gentleman would be surprised to see his wardrobe turned into high fashion. But no more surprised than a Scotsman whose tartans never looked this trendy. Suddenly, an antique portrait looks hot and sexy. Inspired by the past, Westwood manages to foretell the fashion future. The absolutely one-of-a-kind original style of Vivienne Westwood.
Although she's English at heart, Vivienne Westwood is internationally recognized for her innovative talent. Always on the cutting edge, no one captures the mood of the moment like Westwood.
This is the mood of the salon of a time when people were more cultured, the time that ended more or less with Marcel Proust. And so the motive of the artist is very important, with the smock and the cliché with the berry and the pencil behind the ear.
And Vivienne Westwood's artistic vision has led her to be dubbed the designer's designer, because Westwood dresses us in ideas. Her garments, sometimes bizarre, are grounded in history. Westwood samples traditional garments in much the same way a musician would use various types of sound. And for spring, Vivienne strikes a chord with classic Madras plaid, reborn into sexy suiting. And while her ideas may be extreme, her influence has been profound. In addition to a fierce intellect, Westwood possesses the ability to cut cloth despite a lack of formal training. In fact, it's this freedom from formality that gives her clothes originality. And for over 15 years as a designer, Westwood's collections continue to shine. This season and always, Vivienne captures the allure of femininity. Westwood herself says it best. Sexiness is the most important motive in fashion. And although her silhouette has loosened up for spring, it hasn't lost any of its female charm. Never one to resist an all-out assault on conformity, Westwood wins the battle in swells of alluring lace. The mother of invention, Vivienne Westwood. Designer Vivienne Westwood's influence is global. Each fashion season, the world looks to Westwood for inspiration. And for fall, Vivienne takes a little inspiration of her own from bygone Hollywood glamour.
It was called Always on Camera, for people who like to pose, but also because the theme was Hollywood. A couple of seasons ago, I started for the first time to be interested in 20th century couture, especially Dior, who is just such a genius, because it's control, but with all this anarchy inside, really, really technique. And so I started to be influenced by this, and I found that my clothes started to look like Hollywood because those managers of those stars, they exaggerated the French couture, and that's what I'm doing. I'm doing a sort of parody. And then I'm always very keen to do prints to sort of make the theme. And so I took this face of Marlene Dietrich, who's perhaps the best diva ever. I think that the people who want to cut a fashion figure, to be avant-garde about fashion, have to react against this terrible jogging and all these casual things if they want to look special, if they want to cause a riot. My job, I'm restricted by two things. One is cloth, and the other thing's the human body. And my job is to make the cloth give expression to the body. And of course, the more things you can find technically, the more things you can do.
And whatever Vivienne does, she does perfectly, remaining fashion's ideas mogul. Westwood even brings movie star glamour to trousers and jackets, impeccably tailored. And fun fake furs are just wild. But it's Westwood's long, slinky, flesh-colored dress that's ultra sexy. world of creative talent from Great Britain's Vivienne Westwood.
Like many international designers, London's Vivienne Westwood has been making the Paris runways her home. But wherever Westwood is, fashion watchers look to her for cutting-edge style.
I think that fashion is alive more than a lot of other art forms. Even though it's not a major art form, it's still something that's very life-enhancing, and it's artistic. And I think that's because fashion is restricted. It's restricted by two things: by the human body. You must work with the human body, and you must work with cloth. For example, you can make a work of art apparently with a pile of bricks, but you can't make a jacket out of a pile of bricks. It's restricted to your materials, and all art is material, and creativity comes from technique. And my particular job is that I must work with human body under cloth, and I have to make that cloth give expression to the body. That's my job. The thing I'm most proud of, if anything, is my cut. And historically, I have really contributed to the fashion vocabulary in terms of cut. I made clothes that didn't fit, asymmetrical clothes that fell off the body, but that still had a rapport with the body in the past. Then I finished that some time ago, but I still bring these techniques to the way that I cut a tailored jacket. For example, you should try not to have too many seams, because seams kill the body if you have too many. I pander to the fad for slimness, I imagine, and height gives the illusion of slimness. But it's not only that. I mean, it's like when you step into a pair of platforms, it's like you put yourself on a pedestal, you know, and there's no better fashion accessory than a pair of high heel shoes. You always try to get as many different qualities as you can into a fashion show, one quality of fabric against another. It just adds a richness, the idea of decorating oneself, you know, flesh, Rubens and flesh against furs and velvet, and in the summer collection you can't have fur, and therefore we have metallic. As I say, I really do, after 6 months, appreciate to see the clothes come alive, and therefore I expect what you're looking for is that gesture from a model which is so personal that it almost makes a general statement. It's about the genius of the human race in the end, what they are.
Fashion genius Vivienne Westwood. Westwood is on top of the world with the most intriguing ideas in fashion. This season, she delivers a dash of Anglomania.
My job is about two things. It's restricted by the human body and by fabric. And my job is to manipulate that fabric so that it gives expression to the body.
And every body can look glamorous again in Westwood's designs based on the historical fascination of the old English aristocracy.
If I want to print, what I usually do is I don't make one up myself. I find something from the past because I wouldn't have the time, perhaps, to evolve something so wonderful. Some of those things came out of, they didn't happen overnight. They were, you know, a culmination of the whole ethos. I have never let people get away with saying that my clothes aren't commercial. I do think that they are. I think they're possibly more commercial now than they used to be because people's eye needs to get adjusted to do things and it takes time. But I think the gap between my doing something and people wanting it is shorter than it used to be. And I've always, of course, had an avant-garde of people who've liked my stuff. and always had a market for everything. And as a matter of fact, our business just increases all the time.
As Westwood's business increases, so does her worldwide popularity. Today, Westwood is world-renowned for her spectacular mixes. From tartans to argyles, to ball skirts and fake fur, no one's take on fashion is as astute. All of Westwood's greatest hits were in evidence, with her signature corsets gaining new respect. Although Westwood never studied fashion in the academic sense, her uncanny ability to anticipate fashion leaders seasons ahead has made her a much-copied pioneer. World fashion leader Vivienne Westwood. In a dazzling display of talent, designer Vivienne Westwood transformed the ballroom of Paris's Grand Hotel into a funky fin de siècle couture salon.
People sometimes ask me the question of whether fashion is art, and I think it can be. But if I've got to sort of bring up this phrase, a popular culture, fashion has got to be popular to an extent in order to sell. And therefore, I don't consider it ever to be a very high art form. Perhaps you might say that my things come near to art, and the proof of it is that they did take an awful long time for people to buy them.
This season marks a move miles away from Westwood's punk queen image to where fine tailoring mixes with quirky fluidity.
My job is about manipulating cloth to give expression to the body. That includes tailoring. Essentially, fashion falls into two areas, tailoring and flu. You know, one's more fluid, one's more tailored. And it's very unusual for people to work in the way that I work with these little dolls and to work in 3 dimensions all the time. That the garment has its own dynamic, and that therefore when somebody puts that on, that dynamic is communicated to the body and people feel that when they put the clothes on.
Modern-day Eliza Doolittles and winter halter beauties come to life at Westwood. Although she's dubbed this collection Café Society, Westwood hasn't lost her subversive spirit.
You can't dissociate a creative person from one who has a respect for the past, because you see in there what people did and what they achieved and the judgments that they did make and the taste that was, you know, behind the final form and the final idea, and where art and talent was constantly employed in the service of people who had money and patronised good things and had the taste to see what was good.
Vivienne Westwood, leading fashion with cutting-edge style. The endlessly outrageous Vivienne Westwood ignites this season's silhouette with a new dimension on the derriere.
I think that it's maybe the best collection that I've done, and what I think is so special is that there's this silhouette that's a proposal to women to change if they want, and you don't often get that, and I think that we managed it this time. I'm always anti-Puritan, and I always think that the feminist movement is too Puritan. And I just think that more important than anything, women are part of the human race, and the human race is unlike any other animal. It stands on two legs, and it's the genius of the human race to have the possibility to augment everything that they have. They can do everything with their body and their shape.
Westwood sees her cushioned derrieres as natural enhancements to a woman's body.
There was a model backstage before the show with a coat and a skirt matching, and I said, "You just look so wonderful." Let's put the cushion on because it'll look even better. She said, "I have the cushion already." I got so used to it that I didn't even realise you got it on.
This season, Westwood was sponsored by famous Liberty of London. After combing their print archives, Westwood transformed Liberty prints into pure Westwood style.
And it's the first time that I haven't, in 20 years, done my own prints, and this time we did it with Liberty. But I love the colours myself. There was a lot of black and white, but it didn't look black and white because it was like every colour of black and white and soft. Somehow everything was so light. Even though they had all this padding and everything, I mean, this volume just sort of merged into everything. It worked.
Always sending out a myriad of new ideas, British-born Westwood uses Paris as her choice of world stage.
But of course I'm English and I parody the English. But I do hope that I have this international contact, and I think it's very important to show in Paris. I mean, I know the first couturier was an Englishman, Frederick Worth, but nevertheless, France is the home of couture. Nevertheless, they've always been excited and mad about English supposed country living, and I think there's a very big exchange.
Vivienne Westwood, the spark that ignites French fashion. One designer who always dishes a veritable buffet of trends is Vivienne Westwood. Although she's the quintessential English eccentric, Westwood serves the sauciest style in Paris.
Vivienne Westwood is such a trendsetter, and I think that in some ways she hasn't been given a lot of credit for what she's done, because she was the one on tartans, she was the one on, shoulder pads, she was doing all sorts of things before a lot of other people were doing them, high-heeled shoes, and so she really, really is the incredible trendsetter.
I'm just trying to idealise women. I think it's great. I'm trying to carry on in the tradition of great designers. I mean, I admire people like Dior, and nobody idealised women like that. And I'm trying to do the same thing. It's the shape that I think is what I call a new feminine power dressing, because it is women's shape emphasised to such an extreme, and yet it's terribly pretty and terribly soft. And what it is, it starts with the heels, and it's like a chain reaction, because then you get the long legs and the bottom, and everything starts to move, and the tiny waist, and the thorax and the top part. You're like a little insect, really. The top part gets really small, and then you have these puffy shoulders, and the head looks so stunning when it comes out of all this. It's all what you put together, but very subtle things put together, and I love those white-on-white dresses as well, overlays of different white fabric. The dresses were really important this time. The way they were cut was very, very simple, but I mean, when you put a dress on, you do stand out, and it's such a wonderful thing. You just put it on. If you want to even go for the milk, you look great. Everything rests in the cut, and I do think that my cut is I'm known to be innovative, and I would accept that in my cut I am, definitely. And fashion is about cloth and the rapport it has with the human body, and cut is essential to it.
I think that in some ways what you see at Vivienne Westwood show ends up showing up on other runways and in the stores a year later.
I would like the clothes to be not Vivienne Westwood clothes, but you see a beautiful woman walking down the catwalk. That's what I'm trying to do. That their own personality comes out through what they're wearing, and that's what is the thrill for me.
Taste to thrill. Vivienne Westwood. Extremist by nature, Vivienne Westwood took this season's silhouette to the extreme. Loving a good romp with classical fashion, Westwood gave formal English style a healthy dose of French decadence.
The silhouette that we have now is something that I never hoped to be able to do. I did it because I had technical people around me that were able to do it, and therefore I went for this extremely adventurous thing whereby the silhouette is so extreme, the clothes are so emphasized to create this form that I don't think anybody's ever seen anything like it. I haven't. And I just think it's so dynamic. I am tempted to even call it art. I rely very heavily on English wool. This is a winter collection. The basis of my collection is always tailoring. I know I'm famous for my erotic exposure, but I think that perhaps my influence has been probably even more in terms of tailoring. Now we have a return to formality in dress, whereby it would be important to wear certain clothes for certain occasions, not just throw clothes together. This isn't fashion. It never was fashion, and it certainly isn't fashion now. I mean, there is a line here, a silhouette and it's carried out with all the detail in the hats. Wonderful milliner that works with me, Prudence. I mean, I'm just so thrilled. It's called La Cocotte, and I think that a lady who invested in these clothes would have everything she wanted, because I think men would fight over her, and they'd give her everything she wanted, and she could cultivate herself, she could have little suppers, she could just stay with her own integrity and just really try to cultivate something.
Cultivating a new silhouette. Vivienne Westwood.
Designer Vivienne Westwood always amazes. This collection bubbles with flirty seduction.
For several seasons, I've been exploring the idea of coquetry and flirtation, and this show again was very flirtatious, very, very light, and I judge myself by how light and how much the collection gives pleasure.
Very flirty, sexy girl, and this was sort of what we came up with. A sort of flushed face, you know, with a very sleepy, sexy eye. A little white pencil on the inside of the eye.
The corset is very useful because you can have the corset decorated, or the corset can be a foundation to a big drape. It can be something that you build on, but nobody knows that that's there. It's just there in order that everything else can be light around it.
Oh, it's so divine. It's very, very sexy, glamorous, kind of Hollywood, very tight little suits and skirts with sort of gold petticoats sticking out at a strange angle. It's very, very wonderful. Very creative, unusual, but it's got all the kind of, memories of Hollywood glamour.
I do think that life is worth living and that one should think of life as a pleasure. Dressing is something that human beings have been doing for a long time, and if they're going to do it, they should do it for pleasure and very, very well.
London Fashion Week saw the return of the grande dame of British fashion, Vivienne Westwood. Vivienne was back in her hometown to launch her lower-priced Red Label collection.
Vivienne is a really British fashion designer. So many of her clothes draw their inspiration from history. It's really right that she should be here.
What caught the media's attention was not Westwood's clothes, but the models, some as young as 13.
I do think that a young girl dressed in clothes for her mother looks, real competition for the mother. I wanted to introduce these girls to the idea of taste. I think that my clothes, the clothes you've just seen, bring out the personality of the girls. The parents would be incredibly pleased to see their daughter looking like this. You think, my God, my daughter's emerged into something absolutely wonderful. I do think that there is a connection between having taste in dress and having taste in other things.